This is the first panel series of the year for Convo by Design. I absolutely love this. This is being recorded in mid-January. This is the business of design, a part of the Convo by Design wellness and leadership, thought leadership series presented by ThermaSol. I'm absolutely thrilled about this panel, and I feel like you're going to hear some amazing perspectives. And I think it's really important right now because we're at the beginning of 2021, and I think everyone, to a designer, to an architect, to a creative, has figured out that after the remarkable year in business that 2020 was for our industry, it was only the tip of the iceberg. And I feel like if you can grasp this business advice, these tips to sort of upgrade the manner in which you operate your firm, it's nothing but a good thing. So with that, I tried to find an amazing panel, which I did, and to head it up, an amazing moderator, which I did. Christopher Grubb and I go back a little bit. He has moderated some of the panels that I put together at the West Edge Design Fair, and I am absolutely thrilled. Christopher, thank you for taking this one on. I love it and I appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to throw it to you, and I'm going to sit back and listen.
That sounds great. Thank you for such a nice intro, and thank you for this opportunity. And wow, do we have a great panel. We got to do a pre-call introduction, and there's some great information. So we're going to do an intro round. I'll start with me. My name is Christopher Grubb. I'm the president and founder of Arc Interiors Design Group in Beverly Hills. I also do product design. I have two studios, one that's consumer price friendly and one that's higher end. You can go to my website, christophergrubb.com. And I also host some design segments for House Tipster, so I'm out and about, and I miss being out and about. We would typically be doing this in person, but soon again. So let's meet this amazing panel. Let's start with John McCauley. John, tell us about yourself. Give us some background, brag a little bit.
Oh, sure. Our firm is in San Diego. We started the firm in 1988 when I was 3 years old, and it worked out very well. We are a combination of interior and graphic and product. I'm actually a product designer as well, and I've mitigated it into retail design originally, and from retail design transferred to corporate environments, and now we are combining commercial and residential design, and have been doing that for the past 30-something years in San Diego. So it's been a great journey.
Congratulations, 30 years is great. So Joan, I'm going to go to you, and I love the name of your company. Give us an introduction on you.
Thank you, Christopher. And thank you, Josh. Joan Barton. I am the president and founder of Dirty Girl Construction in Los Angeles, California. And, design build firm that primarily, I started as just a construction firm and grew into a design build firm. And I've been in business since 2008 with Dirty Girl. I precede in business, but I was working alongside some other contractors in group settings and eventually just formed my own company, and it took off from there. And then most recently I formed just my design line, which is called She Spoke Studio, which is maybe launching this year. It's quietly launching. We're trying to figure that out right now. This is a good topic for what this all looks like for just the design line. So that's what we do.
Terrific. All right, Ray, you're up. Your turn. Tell us a little bit about you and your.
Well, first of all, I'm really honored to be here with you guys. You're so esteemed. You're so esteemed as designers and product designers and builders, and so I'm just a boy from Missouri to move to California. It was my dream at like 8, 9 years old. I told my family I was moving to California to be an interior designer, live at the beach, drive a white BMW, and have 5 houses in different areas around the state so I could design homes for clients. And I was working for Ralph Lauren after college. I graduated with a degree in architecture at K-State. Was working at Ralph Lauren. They closed our location. So where do you want to move? I said Southern California. So I moved to California, where I met my first 6 months here. I met Barclay Butera. We started a design firm in 1994, December of 94. And reluctantly, I was a product designer. I was we designed hotels and residences, and we designed our own products, and we sold them around, went to all the trade shows and everything, and it was a great experience. And in 2018, I turned 50, and I decided to leave and start my own firm called, it was originally called RL Interiors, but because we do other things, it's now called Railing Hammer. And we're redoing my website. There's no website to go to right this second, but I do everything from events, large events like weddings and big parties. And I wardrobe clients. I do whatever people want, and so I'm kind of like one of those people that's kind of like wherever I go, where the fun is, and that's what I do. So I had a great career. I love my life. My biggest role is dog dad to 3 Chihuahuas. So I feel like that's my biggest contribution, is raising these 3 Chihuahuas. So and I work for fun. So
Yeah, we have to keep it fun. So
right.
when we had our intro call, there is a lot of great information here. So I'm going to jump right in, because the biggest question is, how did you start your business? What was the impetus? How did you organize it, structure it? Did you know enough about it? Is it learned by mistake or error? Or talk a little bit about how you got going. We'll start with John.
Prior to moving to San Diego, I was a professor of design at Ohio State, and I lived in Columbus, Ohio, and I was recruited by a industrial design firm based in Columbus to start their retail environments division. And I did that, and we had offices. We grew to an office in Boston, and then we merged with a larger retail design firm based in London. And so I was in charge of the retail enterprise, and we were asked to prepare a business plan for expansion. And being raised in the Midwest my entire life, I was getting rather tired of the gray skies in the wintertime and the temperatures and such. So I said, let's do California. And I'd never been to San Diego, so I flew out to San Diego and spent a couple of weeks out, and picked up a job with Alcoa Aluminum to redesign their corporate headquarters in San Diego. And one thing led to another, and I was supposed to launch the West Coast office until the London lawyers came around and requested that I sign an agreement that was difficult to sign. So I resigned, and so put my house in the market, packed my car up on a Thursday, and was in San Diego on a Tuesday. And I started my firm by myself in an apartment a block from the beach, of course. I wasn't going to go inland. And lasted there for about 6 months, until I started driving 2 employees I hired crazy, working in my living room, and then opened up an office in downtown San Diego. And that was in 1988. So San Diego was an interesting market. There was no retail design firm in San Diego, so I had to recalibrate going from retail to commercial workplace environments, and I did a lot of banks, and we grew that based upon the integration of merging architecture, interior, and product with visual communications and brand, because retail design is all about integration of brand and making sure that you were true and had a good compass to what your language was all about. Every point of contact, product, architecture, graphic, interior experience. And most corporate environments at that time, in the dark ages, was really all about, can you design a cool lobby and a really cool staircase for my entry? And who really cares about what happens beyond the curtain? The Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the curtain. And that was most of your typical corporate environments in Southern California were really cool staircases, really nice lobby design, and pity the fool who worked here, because that's behind the curtain. So we focused on understanding the language of the culture of the company, and we were focused on making sure that that culture was true to the built environment. And that's how we grew the firm rather quickly, because we were competing against architectural firms and interior design firms that really focused strictly on decor and what looked cool at the moment, and nothing about the business platform. And that was the foundation, and we've grown it pretty much very well since then. to keep.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about growth. That's gonna be a great question on how you grew it and what happened. So Joan, I'm gonna move on to you. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you started it, what your structure was. I'll let you run with that.
Okay, well, I mean, I never planned to be in this business. I'll start with that. I went to art school my whole life, and when I realized that nobody was going to discover me in the park in the middle of New York City, I switched to music school, and I came out here to be a composer to California. So I ended up completely by mistake in this business, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I just never thought of it that way. I thought of what I was about to do as an opportunity. So this was back, there was no Google really when I started. So I couldn't just like watch a YouTube video about how to build a house. I had to go to the library and read books and talk to people and get out in the field and go out with all the subs, learn the trades. I learned how to run the business by running somebody else's construction business, which, I mean, I can't think of any better way to have become a business person in this vocation than to do that, because I got to see the successes and the failures of running somebody else's construction business. So that's how I jumped into this. The creative part, deciding to become a contractor, was secondary. I mean, I took the job because I was getting divorced and I needed another gig, and I was working 3 jobs. And so I was doing my music, I was building houses, and I went back to waiting tables actually. I mean, I was just in this place in life, that's the truth, is I didn't know where I was going. And I just started saying yes to everything that came my way, because that's how I live my life. And somebody asked me if I knew how to build a house, and I said yes, which wasn't true, but I just didn't think it could possibly be that hard, which is wrong. It's very hard if you're doing it right. But I thought, if I can learn how to put together a piece of music, I should be able to learn how to put together a house. And so I just started to learn, and piece by piece, year by year, person by person, I taught myself, and other people taught me, mentored me. I got to really experience ground up building right at the start and understand what that looked like. And I just started to take on more and more responsibility as I felt comfortable. And after about 4 or 5 years of doing that, I ventured out on my own. And originally, I think like all of us, I started in my bedroom, and my entire office was in my bedroom. My phone was on 24/7. I never slept. I took all my money that I could and kept feeding it back into my business, because I didn't even own tools. My first house, I borrowed my clients' tools to build their house, because I didn't own anything. So I owned like a ladder and a Sawzall. So I just started to build it as it came and reinvest into myself. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. The thing that I heard over and over was how unique it was to have a woman in construction. Which still to this day is amazing to me, that I was really kind of I was the only one in a city like Los Angeles. There was a couple women that went before me, but at that time that I started, I didn't know anybody else who was doing what I was doing. So it was a combination of enjoying the art and realizing that I was changing the culture of construction at the same time. I've always been cognizant that I was paving the way for people. So that kept me going even when I was done. And now here I am all these years later. And it's been a really cool road.
Neat.
Well, and Ray, you started with Barclay. I remember you guys brought in Blue and White.
Yes.
And so when you went on your own, how did you set up your company? You talked a little bit about the impetus to make the change. So how did you do that? What's your structure as a company? Because you mentioned you changed your name specifically because your structure changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Joan and John, I also I'm working out of my house, and I came from a company that had at one time 130 employees and 5 locations. And, I just started working out of my house. And actually right now my staff is working on an office in my garage, because what I do is I work on my counter all night. And then in the morning I'd have to take everything and put it in the garage. And then if we were cleaning out the garage, I put it in my car. And it's all the in these bags going back and forth. So it was really confusing. So like we need like a place for you to put your stuff. There's all these great cubicles and wonderful spaces out in the garage now that can store things and fabrics and all that. So it's really amazing. I just was like, at that point, I think I started with Barkley when I was 25 and I turned 50. And I'm like, I guess I'm on this 25-year thing where I was like, you know what, I want to do something on my own, and I want it to be small, and I want it to be something that I can control to some degree, because we really can't control anything. But, you know, and I started doing parties and events just because to pay the bills. You know, I was like, I love throwing parties and events, and people are like, hey, can you throw a party for my daughter's graduation? We're getting married. We're in our backyard. Can you do it? So we started doing that. And then I realized that I really loved having the option of not just doing residential interiors. And, you know, I'd love to do a restaurant and hotel, you know, sometime in the future. I'd love to, there's a lot of things I'd love to do. But I love Joan's analogy. Like she was a composer. Well, I guess we're all kind of composers to some degree, because we're putting together this incredible concerto of like our designs, you know. And I love the fact that we can reinvent ourselves. And, you know, Joan was a composer and now she's building homes and she didn't have any tools. You know, I literally like left Barkley and was like, I'm starting with nothing at 50, what I'm going to do. And, you know, just kind of go roll with the punches. And I always say yes. I'm a total people pleaser in that respect. Yeah, I can totally do that. You know, and then I'm like, geez, how am I going to pull that one off? You know, and I'm always like you said, Joan, like borrowing, like, how can I make that happen? And, you know, so I went to a consignment shop and I bought all this like dinnerware and silver and stuff. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll use it one day. It looks cute in my house. But now I use it I just had a dinner party, wedding for 24 people. And we had, every dish was from my house and every serving piece. And it was amazing. And so I think it's just fun. You know, I love to garden. I love to do flower arrangements. So it all kind of ties hand in hand. And as long as it can be creative, I'm fine with that.
That's awesome. So, well, I'm going to kind of you guys have so much information. So our audience is going to come to you guys for like business. Really, what have you done to create your success? So one question I also have is on staffing. Why don't you talk about, everybody started on their own garage, bedroom, I remember, and then grew up. And then did you stay big? Did you shift down? Did you bring in PR people, marketing people? Talk a little bit about your actual physical business, from moving out of the bedroom type thing, or right now with the garage. For you, Ray, just where you want to go next, or if that's working because of the amazing variety of things you do. So let's start with Joan on that question.
So from the bedroom, I actually, you know, I keep increasing my space, my size of what I need, because my business has grown to the point where I went from the bedroom to a place around the corner where I actually paid a dime a square foot, which was amazing. That's how old I am, Christopher. So I paid a dime a square foot. So good. And I had about 400 or 500 square feet. And I was very vertical in my storage. Everything was extremely organized. And there was bins for all this stuff. And I was still working alone. I ran my business by myself completely. I was everything until 2014. So, so I went from there to a place that I rented, a 4,000 square foot place that I shared with my, actually it's my best friend who's also a machinist. And so we split the place. So I had 2,000 square feet of space. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I bought this building that I'm in now, which is about 4,500 square feet, with parking and outside storage, because I've got all of my containers and all that stuff. So as a construction company, I need a ton of room. As a designer, I need a desk for the most part, and a place to kind of, like, you know, Ray was talking about, where's all my materials and my storage, especially when I'm working with a client and I want to spread everything out. So the space I'm in now, what I was cognizant of was, I don't like to put things away when I'm creating. I like to be able to walk by them and see them, because I'm inspired every time I move past it. And I go, oh, here's one more thing that I found today that might go with this person's project. So my main goal was to not just have storage, but to have a place where I could have 20 different project tables out in the main space, which is what we have, all these tables, and I can lay everybody out and see it physically, which for me is just super important. And also to have different offices set up for different people. So the woman upstairs from me is a designer who's had her own company for many, many years, but we've known each other for 17 years. And we work in tandem together on design projects. You know, whether it's her project or my project, we lend our expertise to one another. And, you know, and I started growing the business in 2014. So in 2014, I was up at like 3 a.m. and I literally had about 20 plan sets in my lap. And I was like gnawing at my gums going, how am I going to get this all done? How am I going to get it all bid? How am I going to get all done? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I need help. I really just said, I need help. I can't do this by myself. And I reached out to a couple of people and just said, do you know anybody who could be a site supervisor? And that is my first hire. My first employee was to bring on a second in command site supervisor who now happens to be my husband, but that's another story. And so he came on and he ran the field for me while I ran the business, because there's a point in everybody's career, especially with this fast moving train, where you can't be fully immersed in the movement of the project at the business level and the paperwork level, and also be in the field moving the project. There's just not enough bandwidth for that for anyone. I mean, at the level that I work at. So,
but from your staffing, because you're staffing, technically you have subcontractors and then the office designers and project managers. Correct? Okay.
Yeah. So I've got two things going on. You know, there's hundreds of people out in the field that are all subcontractors. I've got my own construction crew, which are all employees. I have my supervisory staff who are employees. And then we get into the consultants that I work with on the design level. So I've got electrical engineers and MEP people, and then I've got my drafters and other architects who work with me. You know, I feed a lot of work to a lot of different architectural firms, and sometimes we do it together. It just depends on the project. Or if it's too big for me to handle because of my own workload, I just give it away and say, maybe I'll build it. Or you can come to us for pre-construction consulting, because we do that too. We get into this, you know, helping to develop a project, not just on the level of design, but what that looks like in the field as a build and how much that'll really cost. And that's a really important part of what I do for my clients, whether my clients actually be the homeowners or an architect or another designer who has a more finite knowledge base. So because I work in all these fields, I can tie that all together for people and really help people to develop something that is feasible. So budget wise, you know, everything's feasible pretty much build wise, but can we actually do this based on the budget, based on the city we're working in and all those things. So I got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I hired a PR firm for a minute to kind of help with my branding. By nature, I'm extremely artistic, and I'm not very cut and dry serious when it comes to the brand, like what my look was like. And so my look was actually a little bit messy because I didn't know how to direct just the message of what Dirty Girl looked like. And when you have a name like Dirty Girl, you better have a really clean look, you know? I mean, I couldn't get there because I'm always just scribbling things and doing things. And so I had someone actually come and steer that for me, and check the content I was writing, because I'm also a writer. So it was like just really streamlining my messaging, which at first I fought against, to tell you the truth. I really fought hard for what I thought made better sense. But a combination of the PR firm and my sister, who's a lawyer, agreeing with each other, honestly gave me like the impetus to go, okay, everybody that I trust is telling me the same thing. So I followed that. And then the next thing that I did was I hired a business manager. And that point came for me when I stopped knowing what the questions were. Not the answers, but the questions. I didn't know what.
Expand on that a little bit. That's an interesting, on the questions, expand on what you mean a little bit.
So, you know, you get to a point where you kind of feel like you know everything, and maybe you do. I've never known everything, but I could certainly answer all the questions that were posed to me in a day. What I didn't really know was what was next and what was outside of my knowledge base. And if you are trying to grow your business and expand, for instance, just as an example, if you don't understand what multi-shore means, well, you have to go look that up. But if you know that you need to source from multiple places and you don't have the vocabulary, then you don't know what the question is to ask, and you certainly won't know what the answer is. So how do I get my product? That's a question that I was asking myself. But there was a larger question behind that, which was, how do I get my product efficiently, cheaply, on time? There were so many other things that went with a simple idea. Was I didn't really know what the right questions were to even be asking. So I went and I found people who knew better than I did, and I surrounded myself with them. And that not just helped grow the business, it helped to grow Joan. My capacity expanded. And with that, over time, I've turned into a mentor for other people, which is great. So hiring the people who could help me control and grow and look at how I was marketing and how, what kind of, I didn't know how much money I made. Like, that's a silly thing. But the first question my business manager asked me was, how much money do you make a year? And I said, I don't know. I don't even have time to track it. I'm just flowing all the time. And he said, well, how are you going to grow your business? And I said, you are going to help me do that, and so, but he taught me really old school tools for how to grow a business, but I'd never heard of any of this stuff before. I mean, I'm a musician. Why would I, so right. It was a lot of that type of thing. Really.
Right. Well, and I mean, every owner needs to know their financials. You have to look at it. I mean, I'm down to, I know how much I have to make a day to stay in business. So
right.
I want to move to Ray, because Ray, you have a new business, but you have a PR person and a business manager already. Yes.
Yeah. One thing I learned from Barkley is that, you certainly can't do everything. And I think that if you define the roles of certain people, I think it makes a better leader, because really that's what you are. Right. And so I know that I'm good at certain things. I know that I'm terrible at finance. I know that I'm terrible at I can go out and talk to anyone, but what I do with that information. So yeah, I have 2 assistants at my home, and they do different things. And then I have a PR person who's basically my business development, PR, and she handles some of the social media. And I have someone who does just social media only for my business. And of course I have an accountant and things like that. So there's about 6 people besides myself that are involved right now. And, and they all are very good at what they do. So I can know that I have each one of them will come to me and ask for certain things that I have to give them. So it really makes it kind of streamlined for me.
That's great. And then John, so you've been established for quite a while. So, your start, how you grew, I don't know if you have a PR and marketing team, but talk a little bit about that. And did you ever hit a point you're like, okay, this isn't fun anymore, it's too big, and I'm going to reorganize it?
Yeah, I did that with steroids, and it was an amazing lesson that I'll share. When I left my 600 square foot apartment, everybody kept telling me that I needed to be downtown. I was in La Jolla, which is now the downtown environment in San Diego, and they go, you need to be downtown to survive. So I started asking around and came across an architect named Rob Quigley, who is an amazing architect, still practicing. And he had a brand new office that had 2,500 square foot. And I had no employees. I had one, so I rented it, signed a 5-year lease for a 2,500 square foot office with 1 employee. And within 3 months, I had 6 employees, and then I grew up to 10 employees. I think the second year I had a business manager, had a PR person at that time as well, which helped do the stuff that I loathe doing. I hate making phone calls. I don't like calling people I don't know. I just personality defect perhaps. And so we were down there for 10 years, and it was great. I started doing a lot of work with Quigley, doing his interiors and graphics. We had architects on staff, designers as well as interior designers. And it got to the point where I thought it was time to leave the downtown vibe in 1998, and we moved up the coast to what's called Solana Beach, which is a coastal community. It's called North County, San Diego. signed a lease in an office there that is literally a block and a half from the beach. So I felt very, very nice about that. And everybody came with me, and we grew that office to an additional 3 or 4 people. And then we opened up a branch office. We were doing California Bank and Trust. We're doing all their work. We did 80 branches, did the corporate identity, did the corporate headquarters in Oakland and San Diego, et cetera. And so I had another studio at that office. So now I'm up to 25 people. And in pain, I was making good bucks, but I don't have any human resources ability in my body. I'm not a hold your hand type of person, and there's a lot of HR. You get above 8 to 10 people, you need someone who's really good at dealing with the issues of personalities or personality issues within the office. And so my office manager started dealing with that, which helped out quite a bit. And then I closed that office down, came back to 10. And then I made one of the biggest mistakes professionally in my life. In 2008, I was courted by a very large architectural firm. They had offices in Oakland, Sacramento, LA, Orange County, and San Diego. And they wanted to merge, and I use the word merge loosely. I agreed it was a merge. There's other words for it, which I won't say in public. And they, it was a great offer. 2007, everything was rocking and rolling. Business was great. I was made an equal partner. There's 3 names on the company now versus 2. And my ego felt pretty good. Big time. And within 3 months, I felt like I was in hell. It was a totally different environment. The work that we had done before in the past, for example, that we typically never responded to RFQs, requests for quotes. I just don't do those. I'd be happy to talk to you about what your issue, what your problem is. We can work out a way to work with you as a consultant, because we're not after a job, we're after client relationships. And I would always say no to RFQs. Or we'll work out a proposal and we'll work with you on this. Right. And so that's how they live. This firm lived on doing RFQs and RFPs. They had a department of 6 people. That's all they did all day long. And that's the type of work that I did not want to do. So I negotiated my departure after a year. And I was on a 5-year gig for a buyout over 5 years. And I didn't care. So I just left and started all over again in 2008. Small studio again, which I liked, doing design again, which I loved, no HR issues, which I was in heaven. And it was just an amazing kind of rebirth for me, because all of a sudden I was designing again, whereas the previous 10, 15 years, I was doing a lot of just, design principle stuff, wherever the hell that means. And started.
You did the grow, partner, and then back down.
Yeah, I mean, I went from 1 employee in 1988 to a partner in an architecture firm with over 300 employees, and that's cool. People like that type of stuff, but just didn't work for the way that I was built. And so we re-energized the firm, and then in 2009, Janet McCulley, who had her own career, beautiful career in marketing and creativity and graphics. We joined forces, and we grew the firm in 2009. Started growing it back up again. We moved back to Solana Beach for the office, and our space has been on Cedros Avenue in Solana Beach now since 2009, 2010. And so right now we have what I guess you would call a boutique studio. That's just a fancy name for a small studio. And we do just only so many jobs a year on purpose.
Well, I'd love to use this to segue. We're going to do like a question and answer round, because I know all the information you guys have. There's a lot. And I think as somebody that's tuned into this, like what can they take away and apply it into their own business? So I'm going to hit staffing. What's your secret to find good staffing? And if somebody's watching this, what do you look out for? So if they want to apply a job with you or are using, aspiring for what they need to look for as an owner, give me 2 points on that. What's your success on finding staffing and what you look for somebody who maybe needing to tweak their resume? So Ray, I'll start with you. We're on a question and answer round because you guys have a lot of information. So let's start with that.
All right. So as far as staffing goes, I feel like my staff kind of came out of the blue. I think sometimes we just have that where you're at dinner with someone, they're like, yeah, I've been looking for a job and here's my skill set. And and that's how I found most of mine, or their dear friends, that have worked with me. I've never had a resume in my whole life. I had 3 jobs, 3 career jobs, and they were always just, Ralph Lauren was an application. It wasn't a resume. So I don't really go heavily with resumes all the time. And I've just had a lot of good luck with that. And it seems to be kind of effortless. And I feel like good people are always there and they kind of fall into your lap when you're, least expecting it, at least my experience. And then what was the second part of that question?
If you got it, what do you want to see in the resume? If you had to find a position as a designer and it's like, darn, I don't know anybody, what would you, is there something somebody should have in their resume that's a standout for you?
I always love, for me, I always love someone who's been a little bit in retail. They worked for another designer, perhaps. They have some time as maybe, an intern somewhere that I love, or I don't know, just someone who has a really, I don't like a really long, extensive resume because as you might have known from your emails, I'm not really great at getting back and reading all those fine details. But it's like, I feel like if someone has a really concise, nice resume that I can peruse quickly, and there's just a little job, it just has to be this extensive, career. I think that they would be overqualified for my firm anyway. And, I'm just so, I'd love to keep my firm small, boutique. Thank you, John. That describes my firm exactly. It's a boutique firm and I want to keep it that way. Because I've had 130 employees before and it's just daunting. So the thought of having even 25 is kind of like out of my range. But I think, 6, 7 people is perfect.
Okay, so I'm Joan. I'm going to same question, our question around answer round. So staffing, how have you found employees, and what would you recommend somebody, like what do you look for in a resume? What's been your success finding employees, and what would you look for in a resume for somebody looking for a job with you?
So most of my employees, the majority of my employees over the years have found me. Like they've just called out of the blue wanting to work for me. So but I would say the success rate of the people who call me out of the blue or who submit out of the blue is 2%, because they don't really understand what I do for a living. They don't really understand, they're watching HGTV and they go, I want to do that. And then they're like, they find me and I tell them, I go, it's 4 or 5 years of just answering phones and kind of watching before you really even understand what this business is. So there's that instant gratification of people wanting to just come in and be designers. So, but you don't necessarily, for me, have to have a design background to work well in this company. You have to be able to multitask. You have to have an ability to self-start. You have to have some interest in self-educating yourself, because I don't have the time or the bandwidth to sit down and teach everybody everything I know. It's kind of like going to college when you come here. You better jump in and you better have your books ready and start looking stuff up, because when I start talking in the workplace, a lot of people record what I'm saying because I say so much. They want to go back and review what I told them because there's so much information coming out of me, as opposed to, can you Xerox or photocopy, whatever we call it these days? Can you scan this? Xerox. So, as opposed to task, but task oriented people do really well within this space because we all multitask. So I often look for Jack and Jills of all trades. It's not necessarily that they have a design background. What I'm really cognizant of having an aversion to at this point is, so I sort of divide people by, this is the employee mentality and this is the I own a business mentality. people who have run their own businesses, I used to think, oh, that's great. But most of those people that come to me are coming to me because they have failed at running their own business. That has been very eye-opening for me. They don't actually know how to be in this business. So it's different than if I'm working with somebody who's still running their own business. But a lot of people have come to me and said, well, I don't like running my own business, or I failed, and or all my employees left. There's a reason for that. So I've had to learn to really listen to what people are saying to me when interviewing them, more than what they wrote on the piece of paper, because the piece of paper is just a piece of paper. If you look beyond that and you look at the way they're talking to you, or how they hold themselves, or what they're really saying about how they ended up in front of you, that's how I can pick the best person.
So Ray, you're a little bit less is more, and Joan, you're a little bit give me more so I know more about you. So that's really interesting. John, unless you have something to add, can I move on to marketing with you?
I do have maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
And let me tell you what not to do with resumes. Do not send a resume that has no content to it outside of an email address. The best way to send a resume is to do research on the company you're sending it to, and at least address it to a name of someone who works there, instead of to whom it may concern, or whatever. You can tell it's just a mass mailing, almost like a blind copy element. Don't do that. Make sure that if I'm reading a resume and they have done research on who we are, what we do, what the type of work that we do, it's not ego or flattering. It just shows that they did their homework. Make sure that you don't misspell words in your resume. That's just not something you'll hear that for 100 years. Be professional. Make sure it's business-like, and make sure that the work that you show.
My first question, when they make the hurdles to come in, my first question is, what do you know about my company? Because to your point, I want somebody that's a self-starter and reviewed. So it sounds like you were strong in that same kind of takeaway.
Well, because really what you're looking for, someone who is really more, not necessarily an employee, at least we are. We want someone who's more of a steward of the company, a stewardship. By steward, I mean everything they do is on behalf of the company, and guess what? They get better as a result of being with other stewards, and everybody becomes very holistic. Everybody looks out for each other. There's not negative competition within the office. People are doing what's right for the company and what's right for the business, and they succeed in that process. And it becomes an amazing, powerful thing to hire the right personality. I know that may not be the right word, but we don't want divas. We don't want grandstand people who always talk about me, I all the time in presentations. I could go on about why you don't want to do that, but that's a different book. So these type of things are just basic precepts that you want to make sure that they can think, that they obviously are creative, have good design ability, but they are at the bridge of what I call it. It's the bridge that you have strategic thinkers, you have tactical thinkers. We want people at the bridge who could communicate back and forth, mm-hmm. and be comfortable in the C-suite, and be comfortable on the job site, and work with a contractor as a partner, which Joan, I think that you can tell stories about divas that show up on construction sites that you want to get a nail gun out and pin them to the wall. But these type of things are amazing, powerful tools that are important to communicate, because you have 2 or 3 minutes when you meet someone and you're making that impression. So think about what that is.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that. So one thing, you guys have been very successful. You have people that actually are marketing for you, or bringing in work. But if I have a new business, or I want to grow my business nowadays, back when I started, you just picked out a font. There was no logo, there was no branding. The big thing was, what font do you want on your letterhead? Now these people are told, oh my God, you have to be really involved in social. You have to be here. You have to be here to bring in projects. So what would you tell somebody who's been a successful way, or what you recommend to market, to really okay, here's how I'm getting myself out there to get work, not just to be a brand, but to actually bring in projects. So Joan, may I start with you?
Sure. you know, I've had the blessing, not to repeat, but I've had the blessing of being a woman in construction, which was its own marketing. You know, and so I get that that doesn't happen for everybody. But when you flip over to the design world, I'm one of many. So, you know, what I found was, you know, like using Salesforce or just understanding how to tier your marketing, you know, and how to follow up with making, you know, make the phone call or, you know, make the connection, call this person, have a cup of coffee, meet them for dinner, follow up, which is just old school networking. That is the absolute best tool that anyone ever taught me on how to grow basically my clientele. You know, I sat down and I made a list of all the people I knew and I put them in different categories: engineers, architects, designers, clients, friends, family. And I started working those networks. And as I worked them, I started booking phone conversations. I started booking coffee dates. And then I started booking jobs. And my business it was just old school networking. You know, you go, it's not like, oh, I just got invited to the right party. If you don't live in the middle of Hollywood or some, you know, the Hamptons or whatever, how do you get to that right party? It's not really about that. It's about being able to have a conversation like we're having right now with someone without selling them. Literally having a conversation where both of you are going to get something out of it, even if it's just an introduction, but not selling yourself. We're not used car salesmen. We're people who have something to offer, who are looking for people who need what we are offering them. It's not selling them. It's just, we have a skill set. So learning how, as much as I hate picking up the phone, like John was saying, I don't like to make phone calls. I'm not good with my skill set has had to grow in that area, but being able to just cold call someone in a sense and saying, you know, I heard you were looking for something or whatever. We have a mutual friend. I would love to get together for a cup of coffee and just pick your brain. Whatever it is that where you can make that connection is important, because it will lead to something, whether it's 3 days from now or 3 years from now. You know, there's a reason I'm booked years out. And it's not because of anything else other than the fact that I consistently stay connected to my community. And it's a practice. You have to learn how to do that. But once you learn how to do it and realize you're just talking to somebody, it's super easy.
Right. I have a thing, until they tell you no, it's still a potential project. So John, same question about marketing. What is it that's been successful for you? Because when we all start, we're all wearing every hat you can possibly wear starting a business. So for you, what have you found successful, especially wanting to maintain a boutique type firm of size?
You know, there's a powerful word that's called social capital. Social capital is, in a quick summary, if you make a phone call, someone calls you back. That's important. Again, when I first started, when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. I knew 2 people in the whole San Diego County. So I joined business organizations. I joined Rotary. I joined business organizations, Downtown Partnership, which is a group of business people who get together once a week and talk about civic issues that we have to address. Everybody, you have lawyers there, architects, designers, business people there. I got on boards. Boards are, were very relevant to what I was doing, because I got a chance to talk to people who made the decisions at a certain level that would allow us to do quality and creative design. And then you start really meeting them on a personal level. And like what Joan was saying, sometimes, you can have a conversation that is not, the more it becomes a sales pitch, the more people turn off. Mm-hmm. And the more that they see you and know you and understand that, this person has a direction in their business that is focused and deliberate and purposeful. And look at the work they've done, which I think is key. One of my philosophies is that you get the work you do. If you do this type of work, people are going to see it and they're going to, who did that? I mean, that is interesting. How can I work with this person versus, get a sales pitch? I also started doing a lot of speeches and talks. I'm a recovering academician, so I like to pontificate in front of people. And it's amazing. I got one of the biggest gigs I ever had in my life for a bank that they would never return my call when I was here like in 12 months because they didn't know who I was. So at the American Banking Association, I made a talk on retail design and et cetera. And after that talk, I had all these bankers come up to me and they gave me their cards to call. And so these type of things are not sales techniques. They are making sure that people understand who you are and what you do and what you stand for. And so you eventually start surrounding yourself with people of like kind, and they recommend you to other people of like kind, or they give you a reference. And it becomes a very nutritional end product in that social capital is the most powerful tool you ever get to grow your business.
And then Ray, I'm going to touch on this quickly because I've got a couple more questions. We're running on time. So you mentioned you have somebody that just does social media. Do you find that is a successful way to bring in work, or it's kind of helping your brand as people are looking for designers or inspiration? Or how do you use that? Do you use it to bring in work? Has it been a good marketing tool that way?
Yeah, to both of John and Joan's point, I think that when you're not trying to sell something, you're actually it's subliminal. People want it. I think that nowadays people like to see how you live your life and your personality and the things you do. And so I think that social media is really strong in that respect. And I think like John and Joan, like I do speaking engagements. I have several clients who have introduced me to clients at parties and events where there was nothing going on about design or whatever, but it got to the conversation about what I did, and so that led to those clients hiring me or not, whichever. But I think the less you try to sell a client, and the more they're interested in just you as a person. I mean, I think that a lot of times people don't really think about the design. I mean, not everyone, of course, but I mean, some people want your personality. They like your personality and think you're going to do a great job. They want, you're friendly. I can say, and I think John and Joan had said this before too, when we met initially, is that all of my clients are my friends, and I've been to, graduations and, christenings, and I've read stories to kids in bed when we were on doing their home, and, it was almost done. And so you become really close to them. And then of course they give your name out to their clients and friends and people in their lives. And so I think that I really built my business on that. And I think that the fun marketing and stuff like that, magazine things that I do around town with modern luxury or whomever are fun, but I don't know, there's no ROI. You don't know what the rate of return on that investment is when you're doing a print ad anymore. And I think that when people direct message you on social media and say, hey, I want to hire you, or hey, I'd like to see more of what you do, or I'd like to meet with you, I think it's a great marketing tool. And it reaches millions of people, where you don't know who's really looking at your print ad, but you can see a direct result immediately from your social media post, which I think is interesting.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to have our last question. There's so much you guys have that I wish we could get to all of it, but what are your biggest challenges with running a business? Is it collecting fees? Is it you're doing purchasing and you're competing against the internet? Is it staffing? What is your biggest challenge, and how goes with the one piece of advice somebody gave you when you started your business that you still use to this day? So John, I'll start with you on that.
I think it's deciding why you're in business in the first place. What is it that, what value do you bring to anybody that would work with you? I think the interesting thing about designers is that we typically never retire. And I remember when I was an undergrad, one of my professors, a German guy, he pretty much said in his wonderful German accent that you don't know blank until you hit 50 or 60 in design. And I always thought, you know, wow, I'm not sure if I could, if I make it that long, I'd be happy to, you know, to really embrace that idea. And so what happens that the longer that you're in the profession, you really understand that there's a value that you bring in the engagement, and it's not about the fee. You know, you'll get paid. You know, we've been lucky. I think in the history that we've had, you know, we've only been out 90 days with one client. I mean, we just happen to work with amazing people that can't wait to write the check and give it to you. It sounds weird, but it's just great when that happens, right? I go, well, thank you very much. I'll be
It's
happy.
2 o'clock.
I'll be happy to take it. So the aspect is it's really more of a deep philosophical aspect. Is why are we in business? What value do we have? What is it that we're doing that other people are not doing, that we can provide a subliminal value that people never realize until it's done? And one of the things that I've always driven for in any work that we do within the built environment, whether it's a residential or whether it's a commercial or retail or whatever, is that anybody who goes in there said, I wish I lived here. I wish I worked here. I wish I could stay here. So the end result is it's kind of a legacy in that environments don't go away. You know, if you're in the built environment business, this is not like something you're doing like little, you know, piece of paper and you throw it away. You know, it takes time. It takes blood, sweat, and equity to get this thing built and designed. And I think that's the most powerful thing in the world. Are you there?
Yeah. I don't know if we lost Christopher though.
I'm here. Do I still have you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did we lose you?
Okay. I know I'm still here. I thank you because I was getting free time. Zoom. Okay, I love Zoom. So John, I don't even know if you finished answering the question and Joan can jump in or because I lost audio.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. John, you're done. Yeah.
well, I thought I bored Christopher so much that he just
I thought it was such a great answer that he was like, wow.
We didn't have time to ponder it. I mean,
well, there goes another client.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. I'll jump in. Sure. You know, I don't feel like I struggle with the business. And we're talking about the business, or that I have challenges anymore with the actual business. Yeah, challenge. You know, I feel like what I do at this point in my life is a calling. I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me to step away from what I'm doing at this point for various reasons. Most of them being because I feel like I have something important to pass on or down to other people. So, you know, the challenge for me is, well, technically, on the one hand, you know, John's saying we never retire. We never retire, but the challenge for me is going slow enough that I stay true to myself and my family and my own personal happiness, and that I also am able to continue to leave the world better than it was when I showed up somewhere. So I have to be able to give enough energy to a project to make it worthwhile for someone to hire me, and yet not lose myself in it the way I did when I was 30. And that's all that mattered. You know, the camera lens has gotten much wider about why I am doing what I do. So it's really a very spiritual, personal journey for me at this point to continue to offer my services at whatever level that I can, but make sure that my heart and my health and my family are full and happy. You know, there's a happiness factor. And I think we've all seen in the last year how much more important those things are. So I am tasked now with offering what I do to fewer people at the same level that I used to, so that I can take care of those other things that are now more important to me.
That's nice. That's really nice. And Ray, what about you? What are some challenges and how you deal with it? As a business owner, you know, we all have something will come up, client communication or something. So anything you have that you found as a challenge? Because it sounds like you're just right out the door doing amazing. So
Well, you know, there are challenges. I mean, I loved Joan's response. I think that at our level, you know, I think at my age, and you know, I think we're all doing it because it's passion, you know, and we want to do it with people that we love and people that we like, and people we want to be friends with. You know, I always think to myself, do I want to really sit down at a meal with this person? No, I don't. So why take the job? You know, and I think that's one of my, you know, the answer to your other question was what advice would you like to be given? That don't ever take a job for the money. You know, do it because you're passionate about the project. If you take the job for the money, it's always going to be a job. You know, it's not going to be a passion project. And I think that so many, you know, there's 9 great clients to 1 bad, you know, and the bad ones weren't even that bad. But, you know, if you take it for money, it's the wrong reason, you know, and you're going to have sleepless nights and it's going to be not a fun thing. So that's the answer to that question. And I think access to information is, you know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like all my clients, you know, can go online and see whatever they see. If they hit a style number or a SKU number or a fabric number, they can find the price somewhere cheaper than probably I can offer it. So I just tell people, I'm going to show it to you. If you find it cheaper, you're still going to give me, you know, my hourly plus 30%, you know, so it works out great and they're buying it anyway. So I'm not chasing them for, you know, $1 anymore. I feel like that's really fair to both of us.
we literally could do it number 2 and number 3 of just the information you guys. So any other business tips as we say goodbye to our audience? So Joan, anything else you want to share you thought of?
I think that it kind of goes along with, we talked about it when we all first met, and I hear us all saying it now, but I think to just blatantly say, learn to say no, and be able to feel like inside of yourself what works for you. I think that is the most important thing any of us can know about ourselves.
Yeah, agreed.
So Ray, Joan, and John, thank you so much. Great information. I look forward to speaking with you more. It's always great to learn from your own colleagues of how we do different things, and the audience is really going to take a lot away from this. And Josh Cooperman, thank you so much for the opportunity to get to work with such a great group of people and with you.
Yay, Josh.
Absolutely. Yay, Josh.